Welcome back, Friday Football Feast, live from Buffalo Wild Wings University of Minnesota campus. Today, next week, Blaine.
In Blaine.
Now, Blaine had always been, for years, had been
the Black Friday.
The Black Friday Blaine.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why the schedule switched up this year.
Good parking lot at Blaine for a Black Friday?
Yeah. Well, it's so... The Black Friday one is always so popular that you end up parking quite a ways away.
Okay.
So, everybody's not working Black Friday. It's that one always absolutely huge. Absolutely huge. Speaking of huge.
Me? I mean, that's rude.
You're working on it.
That's what we're in front of a crowd, Charch.
By the way, not Daniel House. Daniel House here. He's here an hour early. Look at the guy's 1% body fat. That's incredible. I'm jealous of that.
The redheaded Wemby.
That was me when I was 18.
Yeah.
Not now.
Big cross-country star that you were.
I know. And him, too. Christian Darrisaw.
Yeah,
this is
not good.
It wasn't something I had been fretting about. It wasn't like losing sleep over the prospect of Christian Darrisaw maybe having a season-ending injury.
Yeah.
Now I wake up this morning and we might be looking at a Christian Darrisaw season-ending injury.
Could be.
And this could materially change the outlook for really maybe even rest of season. We don't know. We're hoping this is just maybe a sprained MCL. Maybe it's 2 or 3 weeks. We really don't want to find out it's a tear. We don't want to hear surgery. We want to hear that this is something that maybe with some rest we can get Christian Darrisaw back.
Yeah, and Quisenberry in his spot. He wasn't awful last night, but long term it's not good. The interesting part of the play is it's kind of that innocuous, right? You got 35, 40 seconds. I forget how much was left on the clock. You got 3 timeouts. And it's the classic backed up against your own end zone. We're either going to break out this massive 20-yard run from Jones, in which case then we call a timeout. Now we have a different perspective on things, right? And if maybe we can squeeze a field goal out of the mix before the break, but 99% of the time it's what it was. It was a 2-yard run, and you're just going to let that clock go. And Darrisaw, if you watch the play, nobody's asking to get injured. But there was this weird, and you can watch the replay of it, you see everyone else on the offensive line on this run play, they're pushing forward like it's a run play.
Right. Darrisaw's backing up a bit.
Darrisaw just stood up.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this now, it almost looks like he kind of took the play off. Like he was treating it like it was an innocuous run play, like it was something that, it's not going his way. It was right up the middle for a couple of yards. And that's how we got pushed back. Because I don't know who the D lineman for sure was, but he got leverage on him. Darrisaw honestly just stood up completely straight.
Yeah.
And it was a weird thing. And then, I think there was a linebacker coming across trying to crash on the run, and that ultimately is who he tripped over. But it's awful, man. Christian's awesome. One of the better left tackles in the NFL.
He was playing so well.
And he was playing every bit of it as a big money man. And it's potentially, it's catastrophic on that side of the line when you're talking about this stage. I mentioned Quisenberry. Is Walter Rouse the 6th-round rookie?
No, I don't
think
so.
Is he a potential option?
I don't think so.
And is this now, like you mentioned, whether it's Dallas Turner, and we still really, it's almost 10 after 10. We still haven't even really dug into this defense and some of the problems that exist there. And, you've heard the noise, and you probably, if you're like me, you've peeked around a little bit at some corners, some defensive linemen potentially, some fat guys in the middle. And now we might potentially be looking at, is there a tackle that's available?
The answer, unless you're going to trade, unless you're going to be buyers at the trade deadline. It's
tough to get a guy off the street.
Approaching quickly now. We're a week out from the trade deadline.
It reminds me a little bit, if 2016, we opened U.S. Bank Stadium.
Oh, boy. Here comes 2016.
And week 2, and I'm not even thinking about it from the 5-0 start, and then after the bye, things went south. I'm not even thinking about it. But
okay.
It was an absolute part of that downfall was Matt Khalil's MCL week 2. Both he and Adrian Peterson got hurt.
That's right.
In that game, it was against the Packers. And it was a tight win. I think Trey Waynes had like a game-sealing interception, whatever.
Was this the Long year?
Correct.
Yeah.
So Long comes in. There was T.J. Clemmings. The injuries on the offensive line, you needed. It's like somebody with the jersey of like previous Browns quarterbacks. That's that's what it was looking like. And Long ends up tearing his Achilles at FedEx against Washington as we were driving to try and tie the game. We were in the Blair Walsh watch period. 2016 was nutty. But it kind of reminds me a little bit of that where, the perception, the aura around the team, specifically it's Sam Darnold offering this rebirth opportunity to this team because Teddy Bridgewater was hurt. In this case, Sam Darnold is offering this rebirth and this optimism post-Kirk Cousins. And then there's that one linchpin injury that kind of changes and makes everything more difficult, makes everything more complex, and the snowball becomes an avalanche. And so that kind of popped in my head last night. Darisaw is so good, and you're just hoping that he threads the needle on this one and it's a short-term injury. But it immediately creates not only depth issues, quality issues, protection issues across the board. If you were thinking about taking reps off of Aaron Jones from a pass protection standpoint,
you can't do that now.
No, thank you.
Yep, Ty Chandler's not good enough there. Maybe Cam Akers is. I don't think he's a pass protection wizard. So I got
to look and see. I didn't see Cam Akers on the field much last night.
Did I don't think he had a snap. I know he didn't have a carry. I know he didn't touch the ball. But I suspect that Cam Akers is the backup running back right now, and that Ty Chandler is going to be back to special teams use.
Yeah, it hasn't been good enough from him. But this is it's interesting to see, and you get a couple extra days here for Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi and company to address it. In the short term, it feels like it's Quesenberry's job.
Yeah.
And in the end, without nitpicking and diving deep into it, I didn't see any moments where he was especially awful. But there was, that 18-yard sack that Sam took last night in the second half. What's going on with that? Get rid of
18 yards.
Get rid of the ball, my man. Yeah. But who's responsible for that?
Darnold, to me, was not the problem. I thought in totality, he played a pretty darn good game.
But that goes back to your offensive conversation earlier. It's, we're going to go through this entire season, and Sam's going to have the best statistical season of his career, and we're going to keep saying that he wasn't the problem. But there are, whether it's finding JJ in the second half, there are some other things that play into that as well, and we're going to find ourselves potentially in trouble here if we can't stem the tide with the impotence of this offense after that scripted bit.
All right, let's move to another troubling area for me.
Uh-oh.
Here's the Vikings. They can't generate pressure on Matthew Stafford all game.
Right.
Brian Flores, because he asks so much from his players, he rotates players in and out of his lineups as much as any defensive coordinator I can remember with the Vikings. Constantly churning players in and out of the field, except one, Dallas Turner. I'm watching Jared Verse, who was also a first-round pick, and he's on the field constantly, and he's making a bunch of plays. And I'm thinking to myself, boy, you'd really think Dallas Turner in this rotation could get on the field more, but he's not. And I understand that this question is being asked increasingly of this coaching staff. Where's Dallas Turner? Where's Dallas Turner? But as this defense is faltering to get pressure, I feel like that's even more
a bigger
legitimate question. How come Dallas Turner isn't good enough to be on the field? Pat Jones is on the field. He's not being particularly effective. Why can't he get reps? Where is his development? And nobody's calling Dallas Turner a bust. We're 7 games into his NFL season, but other first-round pedigree guys are getting on the field and making an impact. We gave up a lot of equity to take Dallas Turner.
Yeah, we did.
We gave this next April's draft. We are not going to have a third-round pick. We're not going to have a fourth-round pick because we moved up to go get him. Why isn't he on the field?
Yeah. Is it similar to the Is it Kevin O'Connell or Sam Darnold, from the standpoint that room has shown a lot of productivity? Does he deserve to be in the rotation more often than Jonathan Grenard? He had 3 snaps on defense last night, by the way.
Okay.
That's what I was
Thank you.
I was
Appreciate you looking that up.
So he played half the snaps against the Giants. Okay, that game was over, it felt like, by halftime, so he's getting a lot of run.
Yep.
Plays a quarter of the snaps week 2 against the Niners, and he misses the Texans game, 14%, 18%, and then the last 2 games, 4 snaps and 3 snaps respectively.
Why are we going the wrong way on Dallas? What's up?
How much do you trust Kevin O'Connell saying in his press conference earlier this week, I think it was Monday, where he said he's going to be a monster for us. We love it, but there's a lot of competition in that room, and therefore, he's still learning some things. This is a high,
okay,
use the term,
right.
high IQ
I'm
defense
listening
and
to
things
that.
like that. Okay.
I'm listening to that rationale when you're getting a ton of pressure on opposing quarterbacks, which they were for 5 games.
Sure.
These last 2 haven't had it.
That is
so.
correct.
How come you're not getting Dallas Turner on the field? If there's just that many great players that Dallas Turner can't get on the field, those great players should be making plays, and they're not.
And you could say Patrick Jones, he had 4 sacks in the first 2 games. He's been stuck on 5 now since.
Yep.
Van Ginkel. I mean, I'm not taking Van Ginkel off. Van Ginkel feels necessary.
Absolutely.
And Grenard, I think, has done a lot of good things as well. Are we potentially trying to put Dallas Turner in Tillery's spot, provide some pass rush in the middle, which is severely lacking in the spot?
I don't think he's big enough for that.
I don't know.
That's another whole issue. Harrison Phillips is very good against the run. He's not a guy who's going to get a lot of quarterback pressure up the middle. We're not getting any quarterback pressure up the middle from our tackles. We have to generate up the middle pressure other ways, usually by blitzing. I wish we had more of that.
Well, in both of Phillips' sacks, one was, and I forget which game it is, but he caught the quarterback as he was running through the line of scrimmage. The other sack was a coverage sack, so Phillips is not busting through.
Right. That's just not his game.
He's made some plays. There was a cool play in, I think it was early in the Lions game, where he jumped an O-lineman running laterally and stuffed Montgomery on a 3rd and short. He's splashed a little bit like that. I like Harrison Phillips, but no. Harrison Phillips is not going to provide
He's not that guy.
5, 6, 7 consistent sacks from the interior. Yeah, I'm still leaning towards, because and ultimately I ended up kind of being accurate. When Lewis Cine did not make the starting roster, this is even prior to his injury in London, I'm feeling bust. I'm feeling that there's a problem here,
right.
And this does not make sense. And at the time now, Cam Bynum has really established himself as a terrific tandem with Harrison Smith back there.
Yeah, and Josh Metellus.
So Cam was a guy we still needed to know more about. He went out and won a job.
Yep.
But it feels like he won a job with a Grand Canyon-sized gap between Cam Bynum and Lewis Cine. I'm trying to be more patient with this, because this is an awful pick if it does not get better. We are only 7 games into his rookie season. We have, until recently, seen a ton of productivity from the guys in front of him on the depth chart. So I'm going to try and be patient. I'm going to trust the coach.
Same.
I think the athleticism and the speed is there. I've seen him make some terrific tackles in the run game. I think there's a spark there, but it's certainly, and the Rams, for instance, you're talking about Jared Verse. They need Jared Verse. There is a little bit of a different situation there with the Rams, and Jared Verse has to win that job and be productive. He had 1 sack in the opener, and then there was nothing until last night.
Yeah.
So it's not like Jared Verse.
He was good last night.
He looked damn good last night.
Looked real good.
But he may have looked as good as he's looked in his short NFL career thus far. We don't necessarily, and actually, maybe now through the last 2 games, we can start saying, we kind of need Dallas Turner to step up.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, as I'm drifting into the weekend and I'm mad about 15 things with this team, I'm not mad about Dallas Turner yet.
Yeah.
But now with the Colts game, as we've seen two performances now lackluster in terms of pressure on the QB, I want to see Dallas Turner win some opportunities against the Colts next Sunday night. And maybe that's a good opportunity. Think about his speed and athleticism against Anthony Richardson, a guy you're talking about trying to contain more than you are trying to take his head off like you would with Stafford.
Correct.
So it's a different kind of QB. Maybe that's a spot where Dallas Turner's speed and athleticism can work to our advantage, and we can utilize that.
Yep.
So I'm not worried yet, but I'd like to see some Dallas Turner highlights, no doubt about it.
Next segment, we have Ike's Bites. Do we have Vikes bites?
We can do some
Do we
Vikes
have
bites.
Nordo's numbers?
We can
we
do
also
that
we got
thing.
Parker Fox
Well, that's
here.
the thing. Parker's going to roll
Parker's
in.
here.
We'll talk Vikings and
We've got
Wolves with
Bercich
him.
looming. We've got Daniel House in the house.
I mean, it's too much show.
I know.
Is really what it is.
I think that's the case.
Why did you worry? You worry. You're a worrier. And everything.
I am.
Everything always works out. Charch.
Everything works out. Not for the Vikings. No,
that is correct.
Friday Football Feast continues in moments. We are live from the University of Minnesota Buffalo Wild Wings. We're reliving the Vikings game. Yeah, let's bring it on. Thank you for coming. These are our hardcore fans that are here now, including Warren from St. Paul.
I'll say this:
Back in moments.
they don't seem miserable.
No, they don't.
They
seem
look like
miserable.
they're having a good time on a Friday
exactly.
morning.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we're
Thanks
having
for hanging
fun.
out with us.
Absolutely. Back in moments.
Before we go, the cash thing, the fan of 2 men and a junk truck want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand at the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com, enter the keyword deposit. Deposit. The keyword is deposit. More feast.
The Fan.
Don't miss the high-stakes action as the Tommies battle the Golden Gophers at the XL Energy Center October 26th. That's tomorrow. For a chance to win tickets, enter for an unforgettable experience. Now, KFAN.com keyword contest. That's KFAN.com keyword contest. Enter for tickets.
Welcome back. Friday Football Feast continues. Paul Charch and Eric Nordquist with you. We are live at the University of Minnesota location of Buffalo Wild Wings. Hi, guys. Yeah, thank you for coming. These are our hardcore guys. People that are showing up.
The real
after
fans.
That performance by the Vikings. We bring in a KFAN regular, Parker Fox. Hi, good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
I haven't
Appreciate
seen
you
you in
having
like,
me.
I don't know, 4 or 5 months,
I
right?
know. Yeah, it's been a little bit.
We chatted over the
Thanks
summer
for sitting
bit.
down, by the way. So
I'm a sitter. Just got done with lift,
Yeah.
and the legs are a little tired. We had
6'7",
leg day?
6'8".
We had deadlift today, Nordo. I don't
Oh.
know the last time you deadlifted, but
Well, I deadlift every time I'm on my
day
feet. As a matter
deadlift.
of fact,
Every day
it's
deadlifting.
a tough subject. I'm trying to cut back, but here we are.
What's
you
your
go.
deadlift?
I think we did some some lower reps today, so we got pretty heavy on the bar. I think
Give me a number.
I think we had like 365
Wow.
on there.
Woo, that's not
315.
bad.
It's okay. I got skinny legs. We had some bigger, some of the bigger guys getting to the 400s. So
Why do all the basketball players have skinny legs?
That's a good question.
They do.
Yeah, you're right.
They
You're
all
right.
do.
I don't know. I think it's just the personnel, the player type versus the big football Ivan Pace middle linebacker legs. You know,
Yeah.
we don't need that. It's
No.
too much, we got to go up and down over and over again versus the short 10-second stints that the
You don't want to
linebackers
carry
have.
any extra,
No.
even muscle.
I'm
really.
perfect being right at 220 and calling it good.
And as you're saying, then it's basketball players are then inherently more athletic than football players. That's what you're getting at.
We'll say that. I don't know. The football players would argue, right? I wouldn't want to go be a cornerback and guard a slot receiver and Jordan Addison coming across the middle of the field. I don't think I'm athletic enough to do that. But
So do you guys get rowdy in the weight room? Is it like viral videos you see where somebody sets a PR and the entire team's around them freaking out?
we have some of that.
Got to pump it up a little
It's more
bit.
of a football thing, right? Where they kind of got they got the smelling salts, the Chris Hockey smelling salts going on, and then they probably got some Toradol going on somewhere too. So we stay away from that. We're more like kind of like the R&B vibes and just.
Have you
like,
taken any of the Chris Hockey smelling salts?
I haven't tried his personally. Are they next level?
I'm knocked out for 15
Okay.
minutes.
Yeah, those things are-
No, you got to stay away from them.
No,
it can become a
if
bad
whoever
habit.
offers the answer is no is the correct answer. They will try to apply a lot of peer pressure in that moment. Parker, everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
It'll make you feel grown up.
That old college, the peer pressure.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Try
For the
this
smelling salts.
substance. Yeah.
It's awful. It's like jamming a bunch of ammonia in your nose.
I think
don't
that's
need it.
actually exactly what it is.
Yes. do not do the smelling salts at all.
No,
Don't need it.
I have a mild seizure whenever I take one, so I try to stay away from them.
No, and then you're supposed to go play initials.
Yeah, no,
on that.
it's awful.
No,
Absolutely
thank you.
awful.
I have enough trouble with initials as is. I don't need that at all. You watched the game last night?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun start, right? It's a really fun start.
The start was great, and we were talking about that. When the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell are on their script, their pregame script, man, they
can't be stopped.
They are really, really good, and I feel like the preparation that they put into getting that script ready in those first 15 plays.
Yeah.
They've got that down.
That's really what it seemed it kind of was for me. It was like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to advance the ball. We're going to get a couple runs. We had a couple big ones, 7-8 yarders that really set yourself up for some shots downfield. And it seemed really scripted, those first two possessions. And then after those first two, it seemed like the script kind of went away, and it was like, where do we go now? And there's a couple big plays in there, but just not enough finishing of possessions, and ultimately came down to hurt us.
Where's your head been at now? Because we've talked a bit about it over the course of the first hour. The perception and the aura of a 5-0 team. You take the pause after London, and everything's awesome, right? And the build-up to that nooner against the Lions on Sunday was epic, really, and this heavyweight fight that was going to transpire, and it really does. But then you see last night, and now you're trying to put through 7. You can still play what you thought this team might look like or what Sam Darnold might be prior to the season versus now. Like, how has your perception changed, or are you still on it?
Yeah, I think people don't realize how hard winning really is, too, where it's like you have so many pieces and your defense is playing so well, and Brian Flores has drawn up so many great schemes defensively, and it's like everything's going great, and you're 5-0. And then you face a really good Lions team, and you miss on a couple hitters that if you had back, you probably win that football game. And then that kind of domino effects into a short turnaround, a Thursday night in LA. And it's like, we got to find a way to win this one, and you don't. So now everybody's like throwing, it's like a dumpster fire. I think Sauce tweeted the dumpster fire, thing out. And it's like, I think
he has a tendency to do that.
Yeah, I think it's less than that. I think it's more, it happens fast. And now it's like, how do you kind of react to that? How do you get, Cashman healthy again and get him back out on the field? I think he's a huge piece. Obviously, we saw Ivan early in that game kind of just get burned on that little that running back route where Kyron Williams looked like he was going out in the flat and brought it back middle and just was an easy touchdown. It's like we need Blake Cashman out on the field too. So
he's been a huge miss.
Yeah.
Now in your basketball career, have you ever had to play with? I mean, it's called turf toe, but effectively it's a ligament joint issue in the big toe. Have you ever had to play with it?
I've never had it, but had a good buddy in high school have it. Brutal.
Debilitating.
Yeah, and it's like everybody's like, turf toe? Like,
it sounds like nothing.
Turf toe. Like,
right.
You should be fine. But it's like, I hear you can't walk barely, and it's almost like, it's like, these guys would be out there, right? If they could play, they would be out there, especially with all the stuff in medicine they have now that they can, shoot them up before games or give them some pills.
But the reason I bring that up is we've kind of, so he wasn't available for the Lions game, and you're kind of floating, maybe he's available for Thursday. I'm starting to think I don't intend on seeing him against the Colts at this point. This feels like it's a for as strong as any athlete, whether it's you in the college realm or at the pro level, the explosion, and you got to be going full speed all the time. I'm thinking this is a thing, this is a problem that we're not going to be able to fix anytime soon.
Yeah, and what I've heard from that injury is it is that. And if you come back too soon, it can linger, and it can be brutal for time on. So I'm sure they're spending really close time with the docs, making sure that he truly is healthy before he comes back versus rushing something back, week 7, 8 against the Colts versus, hey, let's be healthy down the stretch here, week 12, 13, 14.
Yeah, the Vikings need the easiest part of the schedule is basically right here.
Exactly.
Hopefully you can win without Blake Cashman, get him back on the field. And to your point, the turf toe injury, you can't cut on it, you can't accelerate on it, you can't push off. And all you can do is rest it. Yeah. There's no way to make it healthier, faster. So you just, unfortunately, you just have to.
Here's what I'll say from an optimistic standpoint. Man, I'm so glad we got Blake Cashman, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been so good for this team, and it is a measurable difference that he's out of the mix. And this injury sucks. There's no doubt about it, and they got to figure out again how to work around it. But you talk about the spending spree of Kwesi in the offseason, and it's not that I respected the hell out of Blake from his time here at the U, and then how he was being implemented or not implemented with the Jets. It's kind of Carter Coughlin still working his way through things and making a career out of it with the Giants, but certainly you'd say neither have ascended into consummate Pro Bowl, All-Pro status as linebackers or in D linemen in Carter's case. But then his ability, when you finally gave him the opportunity last year in Houston, he blew up.
He did.
And then through the games that we've had him this year, Blake Cashman has been and we're seeing it now, sadly without him, is as vital as anybody on this Vikings defense.
Yeah, and he's got the green dot too. He's the he's the quarterback of that defense, and when you take that away, I think we've seen these last 2 weeks. Yeah, you take a stud away out on the field, but you take your defensive leader away, and I think Ivan's done a good job. But it's like it's different. It's like in any sport when you take your captain away, you take your captain off the field. It impacts the whole team. So I think we need him to get healthy, right? We need him back. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's it. The loss has been more than I expected it to be, in part because we've been able to cover up some defensive, some personnel losses in the past. This one hurts. none of the cornerbacks for this team have gotten hurt, but they're also not playing great.
No.
Coming into this game, Byron Murphy ranked out of 112 qualifying cornerbacks in the Pro Football Focus database. He ranked 112th coming into the game yards allowed, which in his coverage, which is a problem. I think 108th was his ranking in might have been receptions allowed. I'm not sure. It's been a struggle for him. He did have the key pick.
Hey, can I ask you a question with some of that? And again, looking from the second half of Lambeau through to now, that's a very different team with a different idea of what the path ahead looks like.
Yeah.
But there is still, when you're up the way you were on the Giants, when you're up the way you were on the Texans, for instance, how much you're up 28-0 at one point against Green Bay, even through the first half. Is there an aspect like just keeping it in front, like allowing the 7-8 yard reception, allowing some of those statistics that have snowballed into a problem on paper, on PFF, et cetera? But is there a way where you can kind of compartmentalize some of that with the stats with Murphy? Because you've brought that up, whether it's Murphy, we talked about Justin Jefferson and those things, and these are certainly issues, right? And this Gilmore thing now 2 games in a row is a significant problem. If he has to run with anybody, it's over. Yeah. But statistically with Murphy, for instance, I'm having a hard time buying in that he's just been dreadful over, the totality, if we're going to look at it season long.
Yeah, and we don't know the kind of schemes and positions that these guys get put in, but I think over the course, as the season gets longer and longer, your sample size gets pretty big. And when you're, if you're giving up an 80% catch rate and 80 yards in your coverage per game, something's not working, and that's about where Byron Murphy is right now, unfortunately.
I think he's our best corner. I think. I don't know what the statistics have looked like, but I've seen Shaq Griffin at times got a little handsy last night. That was problematic. He's also had his moments. Gilmore in London had his moment with the the game-ending interception and that sort of thing. But in the end, I still trust Murphy overall more than I trust those other 2 guys, in particular Gilmore, who, I hate to say it, cool career, defensive player of the year, kind of evolved into a gun for hire. I think he's been nothing short of abysmal for the last several games.
Parker, we were talking earlier about penalties, and regardless of sport, how much when penalties happen, fouls happen, how much do I think is on the player versus on coaching? I mean, I think coaches can instill and can train and teach and coach up players not to commit them, but ultimately at the end of the day, they're the ones committing them. Where do you think the line gets drawn there as the Vikings come off a game with 9 penalties, 50 yards? They turned, I think, 4 third downs for the Rams, or there would have been 4th downs into first downs. Penalties were a huge problem here. Where do you think that falls in the spectrum between the player and the coach?
Well, I think it's tough, too, because in this game, so many times with fouls in the NBA or for ourselves in college basketball, and then penalties, I think refs kind of set the game up, set the tone of the game when it comes to penalties and fouls.
Yeah.
And in this game, it seemed like I don't think was there a flag in the first quarter? I don't think there was. I think it was a pretty clean, maybe one or less than one, but it was a pretty clean first quarter, and I think that kind of set the game up, and then it flipped on us, and there was flag after flag after flag.
Yeah, so 9 total penalties.
Yeah, so I think to answer your question, I think obviously KOC's working that sideline, right? He's working the refs to get whatever in their favor, but it comes down to the players, right? It comes down to not allowing little grabbing calls, not allowing little things to kind of bother you on the field. And then it's also being disciplined, right? So many of those disciplined calls. You have the 12-man. I think we were blaming it on Dallas Turner. I don't know if it was his fault. Who's to say?
It's a little bit hard to know who, but when you're the guy running off the field as
probably
the 12th man,
right?
It's probably you.
Probably you.
Yeah.
But Taylor asked me last night during the game, she's like, how does that happen? How do you have 12 men on the field? How do you not know? And I was like, to answer your question, like, I don't know. It kind of just happens. It's just a discipline thing. It's on the players. It's the coaching
trying to get that 4th snap.
Yeah, right.
Right.
but it's on the players, right? You got to know what you're doing at all times. Football is just that way. It's a very unique sport in that way, where it's like you got to know what the heck is going on, and if you don't, it's going to come back to burn you.
Hey, from bad times with the Vikings, 5-2, and a chance, by the way, very winnable stretch ahead.
Yes.
So we've had some doom and gloom. Loving to nitpick it. We're in a bad mood. We haven't gotten enough sleep. But the team's 5-2, and they have a chance to continue, and a win will solve a lot of problems, right?
Deep breaths.
How about the Wolves last night?
Yeah.
From bad times to good times, the effort level and just the discombobulation of things. Julius Randle was pulling a sled against the Lakers the other night. How do you not get up for LeBron and the Lakers in prime time? But last night in Sacramento, man, Julius Randle was so good. Ant, some shot selection and things. What did you think about the late win by the Howl?
Yeah, we talked about it Thursday morning on Power Trip too, or yesterday morning. How tough of a place it is to play in Sacramento. They have it really going on out there.
Really,
they light the beam. Their crowd is wild. They play really hard. They got
light the beam.
Have you seen their light the beam deal?
What is that?
So after every win, their player of the game goes to center court, and they have a big purple button, and they press it and they light the beam, and it's basically a beam that goes up into the sky, kind of like your Mystic Lake kind of starlight.
It's like a spotlight type of thing.
And the player of the game for the Kings gets to light the beam, and
that's
it lights
cool.
up Sacramento.
Good for them. They got a thing.
They got their thing, and they discovered that last year. So it's been a tough place to play. But I thought the Wolves were really excellent last night. I thought they've kind of started to figure out what their rotation is going to be in terms of Dante DiVincenzo and Mike Conley in the backcourt. Bringing in, Julius Randle from the Knicks. He was excellent last night, 30-plus points. We talked about it. It's going to take time, right? Bringing in two new guys to a team that went to the Western Conference Finals. Like, you're right. You should be able to get up for LeBron and the Lakers in L.A., but this is going to take time. It's 82-game season, but I think we took a step last night, and you come out with a win in Sacramento, which is a very key win.
What do you think Conley through 2 games, though? Is he showing his age a little bit? I mean, there were times, and a lot of people were getting on Anthony Edwards about it, but I would actually start, even, if you're going to blame Randle, and I think Randle deserved, and he talked about how Finch worked with him over the last couple of days that culminated in a better performance last night. But Conley through 2, I'm never going to say Conley's out to lunch per se.
Yeah.
But there was a lackadaisical nature, and I think in some ways it started with him where Ant, and again, talking about bad shots, you could see Ant as really the only guy. Like, if I'm thinking it's against LeBron, it's prime time, who's going to be out to lunch or take the day off or just try to moonwalk through a victory? I have to be honest, I'm thinking that's going to be Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards feeling his oats. He's big man on TV and Netflix now and the whole thing. And, no big deal. Opening night, we got 82 of these things. Anthony was locked in, ready to go, and he's begging his guys opening night to handle business. Conley with the turnovers and just some bad decisions. And then last night, the shooting's not working.
Yeah.
Like, we need our old man to get going here.
Yeah, I think, we definitely saw that from Ant, and that's encouraging to see because ultimately you want your best player to be your best leader, right?
Yeah.
You want your guy.
And he's taken that on well.
He has. You want that guy that's taking the big shot to put that on his shoulders and take responsibility. But Mike, as a veteran in the league and as our point guard, our table setter, we also need his voice and his presence to be that as well. But not only that, to have his play be there as well. And I think it's a little combination of 2 things. I think Ant's having the ball in his hands a lot more, taking the ball out of Mike's hands, starting the offense, initiating the offense. So I think that's 1. And then 2, obviously, Mike's age and getting older, but I think it's just taking good shots for Mike. And I think once you play a little bit more ISO ball, which I think Chris Finch is going to fix down the stretch here. It's been a lot of ISO ball for Anthony Edwards. It becomes a late shot clock situation, dish off to the veteran Mike Conley, and then it's like, hey, it's a tough 30-foot jump shot, or it's 4 seconds on the shot clock and I'm getting the ball. It's really hard to make a play with that short amount of period of time. So I think as we go along on the season, you're going to see more consistency from Mike Conley, just getting the offense running and setting the table for his teammates.
So the season's not over yet.
Yeah,
they got 80.
we got 80 more, right? Goodness gracious.
I'll tell you, because I can be so immature and emotional about some of this stuff. I was cool with the Randall bit.
Yeah.
But I'm really this has to be, again, from chemistry building. Like, I can't sit there. It's like, oh, we're happy for LeBron and Bronny. Don't care about that. I need to see what Julius looks like. And then he kind of laid an egg. And, it's just 1. It's going to be okay. Take a deep breath. I was so happy that, and now we get 3 games at home straight.
Yeah.
Let's just absolutely wax the Raptors.
Yeah,
and then we get a couple of cool games.
Yeah.
Mavs and Nugs in town.
Yeah.
The Nugs games are sweet, just like the Kings ones are. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, we're going to set the table on Saturday. Should be a winnable game against the Raptors, and then you get to play the 2 teams that you're probably going to face in, to get to the finals, the Mavericks and the Nuggets. So what a better opportunity early in the season to kind of gauge where you're at.
Thanks for coming down on campus,
yeah,
Parker.
Thanks
Great
for having
to see
me,
you
guys.
again.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
When we come back, Pete Bercich will join us on 45 Minutes of Sleep. He was in Los Angeles, about, I don't know, 8 hours ago.
Yeah.
Plane landed at 4 in the morning.
Whew.
And now Pete Bercich here, ready to talk Wolves and break down the game. We'll catch up with the color analyst when we come back to the Friday Football Feast.
Join the voice of the Vikings, Paul Allen, at Hy-Vee in Eagan, Tuesday, October 29th. Stop by from 4 to 5 p.m. to meet PA and Viking Cam Bynum, thanks to Hy-Vee and Pepsi, plus a live Q&A event to follow. Full details now, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Welcome back, Friday Football Feast, live from Buffalo Wild Wings at the University of Minnesota campus. Great to have the hardcores here. Pete Bercich, these are the true believers right here that show up the morning after a tough Viking loss.
So thanks everybody for coming out, and it's good to see you.
You know,
I was thinking about this at about 4:00 in the morning on the plane when I'm like, oh my god, I got to get up and we're gonna be,
right.
it's going to be like 3 hours.
You are also among the hardcore, Pete. Awesome that you are here.
So,
Appreciate that.
It's been a while since I've been to one. I think the last one I went to might have been in Prior Lake.
What year?
My God, I don't even know. Probably 4 or 5 years ago.
Dang.
Maybe. I don't know.
Nice to have you back.
It's good to be back.
Now, are you somebody who can sleep on a plane?
No, I used to be able to. I used to be able to, but I've seen I've lost that magic ability.
It is
a talent.
It is.
I just sit there and, I mean, you got movies and stuff, but still.
No.
It's been, you go from going back and forth to London to here to, now. So LA wasn't as bad, no question about it, but still the worst part, I think, is after you get off the plane, you get on the buses, and then you go back to the facility, and then you gotta, walk to your car and everything, and it's
right.
Just after a loss like that, it's just a long day. All that stuff. It's like, I think with anybody with any job, you have all that stuff that when you're winning, it's okay, it's worth it. But when you're not winning, road trips are, it was great. It was great to be in South Central or be in LA, and it's a beautiful area. We were just north of Manhattan Beach. We were at the Ritz-Carlton. It was a great hotel.
Really?
Right there.
Nice.
Right there in the marina.
Dual skinny dipping.
It was nice.
Did you end up getting a tattoo at Venice Beach?
No.
Okay.
I did not.
All right. Well.
Venice Beach is interesting, very, very unique. Well, we talked about it when I was out there.
Yes, it's its own universe.
Just rented a scooter and said, I'm gonna go see some stuff.
You will see stuff. Yeah, no doubt.
No, not so much at 9 in the morning, but yeah, you see stuff. I saw a shirtless PA in the Pacific doing a skull chant. Of course, it was on film. Of course it was being filmed, but yeah, it was a beautiful thing.
Now, did you see the much ballyhooed dime-sized nipples?
Oh no! I couldn't. He
didn't have his binoculars with him.
A quarter of a mile away. Yeah, I couldn't tell.
It was better for everyone that way.
It probably was. All right, let's talk about the game now.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about?
In some respects, we're acting like it's the end of the world. We had a Vikings loss by 1 point last week.
Yeah.
This loss came down to really a final drive. It ended up being 10 points, but then it was safety at the end that never should have happened. Blah blah blah. So I mean, it's been all doom and gloom this morning. Maybe it's not as bad as I think, but
it never is. It's never as good as you think, and it's never as bad as you think, and somewhere in between reality lies. Right? I mean, you lose to Detroit. A good football team. Just the mental errors, on defense especially, cost you touchdowns. And then it's just amazing to me how much better the Rams looked, or how much better they got in 3 days.
No kidding,
so if
right?
you watch the game against Las Vegas Raiders. Here's a team that the Raiders turned the ball over 4 times. The Rams defense didn't allow a touchdown, and they almost lost.
Right.
Stafford had he had 154 yards or so, I think, passing. That was the least amount he ever had in a game that he started and finished in his career. 0 touchdowns, 1 interception.
And they flipped it over to this 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, and is that all because of Cooper Kupp and Pua Nakua? I don't. It's part of it, but my goodness, that you gotta give them a tip of the cap. It was do or die really for them, right? Because they were going to go to 2-6,
Yeah.
2-5, and so just they did what needed to be done.
You hit on something that I talked about in Fan Line. I even mentioned it earlier, and you said it brilliantly on the broadcast. That kind of the chess match of the game, McVay with the quick game, and so Flores in some ways reacts. We're going to play more coverage, and then Puka and Cooper start feasting. So now how does Flores react to that? Because I thought this was an opportunity for pressure. We didn't get much on Stafford, and I thought it was in some ways masterful by McVay how he really was always in control of the strings last night.
Yeah, it was. The other thing that was interesting too is that every single offensive snap had a shift in emotion to it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they, because they saw.
You got to get your conditioning
Well, I mean,
in with the Rams.
They saw last week in the Amon-Ra St. Brown touchdown. We had a blitz on, and they motion one guy, and then our coverage breaks down. So they're saying, okay, we're going to make these guys adjust on every single play, because they've shown it on film. They're having trouble with it. So every play had a shift in emotion. But you look at the first half, they ran screens. It was 87 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, we were on pace to give up 174 yards on the ground, right? It's
brutal.
To a team that only gives up, 60 a game. Penalties, you heard
it's 6 in the first half.
Yeah,
I think
and so the ball, the Stafford was throwing. I mean, the football was coming out of his hands immediately,
lightning fast,
constant, right? Constantly. He was not sitting in the pocket reading anything that entire first half. And what did it do for us? Well, it got our DBs in a bit of a rhythm where they were starting to sit, and they came out in the second half and just opened it up. And then that's when the deep ball started, and that's when the play action started a little bit, and you got more of the drop back. And then once they changed that, we didn't get after them. I mean, what the sad point is that one sack might have changed that whole entire game.
The Harrison Smith missed sack.
Yeah, you had. I mean, Jonathan Grenard. He's been our most.
Was it Grenard?
Grenard applied the initial pressure.
Right.
He came out. He came underneath the tackle and got Stafford to flush out, and then he did the initial pressure, and then he kind of stepped up away from him, and then he saw Harrison Phillips coming, and then he just ducked, and over the top goes Harrison Phillips, and then he pops up and boom, throws a touchdown. So a guy that threw 0 touchdowns last week throws 3 yesterday. His offense has had
4.
Don't discount him.
4.
It was a 4-piece.
Yeah, he had thrown for 3 touchdowns going into that game, one of which was to the running back, right? So my point again is that they did what was they improved and addressed problems and did a lot of things in a short amount of time, before we played them. So, the lack of pressure is definitely an issue. It's just. When you look at the defense, what was interesting is when we started, Pat Jones was out there, but he didn't start for Grenard or Van Ginkel. What they were doing is they had Van Ginkel really off the ball, and then Pat Jones playing the outside linebacker position.
Do you think that was because of Cashman not being in?
It's been very interesting how. Because against Detroit, we experimented with Dallas Turner there. We experimented. We had Metellus was there for a while, and then Van Ginkel was there for a while. And it's for some reason they don't want to play Grugier Hill on base downs at inside linebacker. For whatever reason, I don't know. But you had mentioned
as well that they were better against the run with we were giving up something with Van Ginkel not
against
playing.
Detroit. Against Detroit, our front is better when Van Ginkel's on the line of scrimmage, right? They ran a jet sweep with Nakua that was a good run, and then they tried it late in the game, and that's when Nakua almost went out of bounds, and then a play later, Cooper Kupp went out of bounds. But that's where he's just more productive out on the edge, right? He's just a better player out there. He's instinctive. So you lose him in pass. You lost. Cashman in the pass, in the inside between the hashes kind of thing. So, the losing Cashman has been a big. I mean, that seems really. You look at the players; it's the only difference really that's happened. But a big part of big cog in the wheel and the leadership I think that he brings to the group, having that missing too has been. But he's the only common denominator for the last 2 weeks. So I mean, what else? Obviously, guys need to make plays and. We can get into the penalties and we can get into a lot of other things.
We might.
How we shot ourselves in the foot. And if you look at it, if you look at it on a drive-by-drive basis, I mean, this is a team. Again, stuff that we had going on. The first 4 possessions that the Rams had against the Raiders, they gained 67 yards.
That's it.
Yeah, they got that done in the first drive against us.
Ugh.
Right, and so. They found a way to get consistent, and they brought it together. So, but that's the thing with us on defense right now is we just never really we didn't give up a lot of huge plays early, but it was just boom, boom, boom. Chunk play after play after play, plays, and they were getting up and down the field on us. And
6, 7, 8 yards of play.
We didn't do anything and then we'd shoot ourselves in the foot. We get them in third down, and we'd get a PI, or we get a hold, or we get something else, and so. That part of it's just disappointing. Very disappointing.
That is the radio color analyst, Pete Bercich. Can you join one more segment? If you're gonna run in here on 2.5 hours of sleep, we ought to at least talk 2 segments,
sure.
right?
I'll stay here till midnight.
That might be a bit much.
I just roll up a sleeping bag and put it behind the bar.
There you go. Well, yeah.
Pull a Nordo and just hang out there.
I know. I don't know what that means.
The 2 guys
I feel like that's ripping me somehow, but I accept
it. Was.
I accept
it. Was.
More Pete Bercich when we come back. We'll continue breaking down this tough Vikings loss against the Rams when we come back. Friday Football Feast live from Buffalo Wild Wings University of Minnesota campus.